Okay, I believe we can go ahead and get started. Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you all for attending another segment of Tarana Tuesday webinars, today titled Best Practices for Interoperable Solutions. Here to present from Tarana Wireless is Gabriel Moran, their Global Government Affairs and Policy Manager, and representing Winncom Technologies is Alex Cernik, our Fiber Product Manager. Apologize, I can't speak today. If anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to add them into the chat and they will be addressed. Alex, you're up.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you for the introduction. Gabriel, how you doing? And thank you.
Hey, Alex, happy Tuesday. Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. And for all of you guys who are joining, thank you very much. What I would ask is if there are questions that come up throughout this presentation, just drop them in the chat. We can address that at the end of the presentation. We can go through each one by one. If you want to have something more of a consultative conversation, or if it's a more in-depth question, the last slide in this presentation will be contact information. So please reach out to us and we're here to answer all of your questions. Our goal, and I've mentioned this through the series, is trying to take a complicated topic that's BEAD and really simplify it from a product eligibility perspective, for a solution perspective, and then as your advocates, both Winncom and Tarana are out there trying to talk about fixed wireless access and how this fits best in these BEAD applications. So kind of to set the stage of what to expect for this webinar, here is our roadmap. We'll start again by going over just at a high level, what are the updates? Where are we with volume twos? Where are we on this multi-state environment? A lot of people have finalized their pre-application process and they're moving to application. So Gabriel will take an in-depth look at what each state is doing. If we do miss your state, again, please reach out and we can get you more information. Or if you again have more questions, we can have more of a one-on-one type of consultation. We'll follow that up with Winncom's Fiber Solution Eco Center. So this will be a combination of what's BABA certified. What does that mean? What products fall within that periphery for both active and passive? We'll look at middle mile, we'll look at infrastructure, and we'll kind of bring that full circle with talking about lessons learned from Louisiana. And then Gabriel will talk about Tarana's G1 product, reliability, deploying, and how this fits best in hybrid applications. And then we'll bring this full circle with Winncom services. We'll highlight again how we can help from a mapping perspective, from grant writing, professional engineering, and bringing that with our financial suite of services. So tease you up a little bit, Gabriel, if you can give us what is the latest that's going on with the BEAD market in each individual state.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that introduction, Alex. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy Tuesdays to join us here to talk about the latest and greatest in updates on the BEAD program. You know, at Tarana Wireless, the Government Affairs and Policy team dedicates a lot of time and effort to engaging with state broadband offices and agencies and trying to foster collaborative working relationships to achieve our shared goal of ensuring 100% universal broadband service for all unserved and underserved communities across the United States. Before diving into a detailed state-by-state update on the BEAD program, I would like to start with just kind of a quick high-level overview of the program's progress. You know, as of today, all 56 states and territories have received approval of their BEAD Initial Proposal Volume 2, which is very exciting. This morning, the NTIA announced that Texas finally received approval of its Initial Proposal Volume 2. So this means that all 56 states and territories are now in the process of their 365-day timeline to solicit, evaluate, and select subgrantee BEAD project applications. This approval timeline does pretty much align with the timeline that was set by the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, who had indicated that approvals would be completed by November. And this is really important, as it just ensures that these states are going to be well underway through their BEAD process, during the handoff between the outgoing Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration. The states are really are at various stages of implementation, with some having conducted multiple rounds of bidding. Others are preparing for or in the midst of their challenge process. Some are scoring project applications, and others like Louisiana have already published their draft final proposal and are already soliciting public comment on the prospective/preliminary winners of their BEAD program. And we'll talk a little bit about this more later in the presentation. But this staggered approach to the BEAD process provides ample opportunity for states to learn more from one another as they navigate through the various challenges and roadblocks to running the BEAD program successfully. But also similarly, because the states are in kind of varying stages of the process, not all states potentially will benefit from new or subsequent NTIA guidance that comes out that could prove critical for meeting the program's universal service mandate. Next slide, please. Perfect. So let's get right into this multi-state update. At Tarana Wireless, as I like to say, we love all of our states equally, so we will be reviewing these states alphabetically. I will also note that some smaller states have been omitted or are omitted from this list. The states that have been omitted are states with sufficient BEAD allocations or population densities that are really conducive to the deployment of ubiquitous fiber and don't really have much need for fixed wireless. Moving to Alabama. Alabama finished its challenge process on Sunday, November 17th. Earlier this morning, the Alabama Broadband Office held a webinar on the upcoming pre-qualification process, which is just about to start. I would strongly recommend for Alabama providers who might be listening or watching this webinar, definitely get familiar with the pre-qualification requirements and start putting together your pre-qualification materials sooner rather than later. Moving to Alaska. Alaska is planning to hold its 120-day application period to apply for BEAD funding. This grant application period is scheduled to open on December 16th and will close on April 14th at 4:59 p.m. Alaska Standard Time. Alaska has published a draft state notice of funding opportunity for the allocation of its BEAD funds, and had been accepting public comment and feedback until November 15th. I would recommend taking a look at that draft state level NOFO to get better sense of the working mechanics of the BEAD program in the state. Moving to Arizona. Arizona wrapped up its market sounding process, engaging with providers on the prospective project areas back on November 7th, and is currently integrating ISP/broadband stakeholder feedback onto the proposed project areas. The Arizona Commerce Authority has come out and said that it plans to put out its final project area subdivisions out on November 26th. And the broadband office has let us know that it plans to open the subgrantee application window on December 20th for a first round of applications focused on fiber projects. Moving to Arkansas. Arkansas is still in the middle of its pre-qualification process. Pre-qualification opened this summer back on July 8th and is expected to run through the end of Tranche 1 or Round 1 bidding. The Arkansas Broadband Office announced that Tranche 1 bidding will begin on January 7th of next year and will be open for 2 weeks. I would expect that an updated program timeline will be published to the Arkansas Broadband website fairly soon. Moving on to California. California wrapped up its challenge process and submitted them to NTIA for final review and approval back at the start of the month on November 4th. They have not yet announced when they will initiate the BEAD application process, but I would recommend definitely signing up for the California Public Utilities Commission's newsletter on the BEAD program to make sure you do not miss any announcements on upcoming dates or milestones. Moving to Colorado. Colorado closed its BEAD application window back on October 28th. The Colorado Broadband Office has published a summary of the applications received on its website. The Broadband Office is now officially in its application review and scoring phase for the next 160 days. So they are currently in the deliberative/negotiating process right now with BEAD providers. Moving on to Florida. Florida is still in the process of negotiating or navigating the rebuttal and adjudication phases of their challenge process. They have publicly stated that they will look to submit these results to the NTIA for review no later than November 21st. So we are coming up here. Moving on to Georgia. Georgia has completed its challenge process and has announced it will begin accepting BEAD applications on December 2nd. The Georgia Technology Authority actually held a webinar earlier this morning on the specifics of this first round of applications. I would encourage you to check out their website and snag their slides from that webinar this morning. Moving on to Hawaii. Hawaii is still running its challenge process until December 7th. Once the challenge process has concluded and the NTIA approves the results, the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii, who is overseeing the BEAD program, will hold 2 rounds of requests for proposals, one round focused on soliciting project applications to serve unserved and underserved broadband serviceable locations, and the other round will be focused on soliciting project applications to provide gigabit symmetrical broadband service to community anchor institutions. Moving to Idaho. Idaho wrapped up its adjudication phase of the challenge process back on October 1st. Idaho is now focused on publishing the proposed project areas for provider feedback and running the pre-qualification process. Both of these phases are anticipated to start pre-2025. So I would expect you will probably be seeing some updates from the Idaho Broadband Office in the next couple of weeks. Moving to Illinois. Illinois started its pre-qualification process a while ago and ended it back in July of this year. The Broadband Office had anticipated starting the BEAD process back in October. However, the state has yet to publish the finalized list of BEAD eligible post-challenge process locations. And the state had committed to publishing this map 30 days before the beginning of the formal application process. So I would say keep your eyes peeled in the state of Illinois to see when they publish that state level notice of funding opportunity that they were hoping to publish back in October. Hopefully it will be coming out fairly soon. Moving to Indiana. Indiana wrapped up its pre-qualification process back on September 27th. They are still looking at a November to December date for round 1 of bidding. And I think really what they're waiting for is NTIA approval of their challenge process results. Next slide, please. Thank you. Moving on to the great state of Iowa. Iowa, we are still currently waiting additional information from the Broadband Office. Iowa had proposed the publication of a notice of funding availability document through the state to administer the program. The notice of funding availability has yet to be published. Moving to Kansas. Kansas is currently soliciting applications for BEAD projects, and that application window is open as of October 21st and will close on December 5th. Moving to Kentucky. Kentucky started its pre-qualification process back in August this summer and ended the pre-qualification process on September 13th. Kentucky has not yet announced a date for the commencement of BEAD applications, and they have not yet published the NTIA-approved challenge process results. Moving on to Louisiana, as I noted, Louisiana published a draft final proposal document with identified preliminary BEAD project winners on Monday. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but Louisiana is by far head and shoulders ahead of the rest of the states in terms of the BEAD process. So lots of lessons to be learned from them. Moving on to Maine. Maine wrapped up its pre-qualification process back on October 18th. Maine is still waiting for NTIA feedback on the challenge process results and the proposed project funding areas that providers will bid on. Within 30 days of that pre-qualification close, the Maine Connectivity Authority will notify prospective applicants of their pre-qualification status and whether or not they are allowed to proceed into the formal BEAD project application period. At present, the Maine Broadband Office has stated it will begin accepting applications from approved pre-qualified applicants in winter of 2024. They have not yet identified a date of when they will open up applications. Moving on to Michigan. Michigan is still waiting for NTIA approval of their challenge process results and project areas. They started pre-registration back in June of this summer, and they have said that they will continue to accept and review pre-registration applications and materials on a rolling basis until 30 days following the opening of the subgrant program project application window. That application window has really shifted, I think, just as they've been waiting for NTIA approval. They were looking to open up the application window for fiber applications back in late October. Obviously we're in November. They still haven't started accepting applications, so this timeline is absolutely subject to change. Michigan did publish a version of its BEAD subgrantee application packet for public comment until November 29th. I think that does offer some good key kind of indicators for Michigan ISPs interested in participating in the BEAD program. However, we're still waiting for those dates to be finalized. Moving on to Minnesota. Minnesota wrapped up its BEAD challenge process back on October 21st. They've yet to announce the start dates for their BEAD application process, so stay tuned in Minnesota. Moving on to Mississippi. Mississippi wrapped up the BEAD challenge process back on October 7th, and they are currently soliciting letters of intent from interested BEAD subgrantees from November 18th to December 6th. So if you are interested in participating in the BEAD program in Mississippi, make sure you fill out that letter of intent and get that filed. Moving on to Missouri. Missouri is currently reviewing submitted pre-qualification materials, and they're currently vetting interested applicants. They are also currently accepting applications for their round one application, which is opened as of November 15th, and will remain open until January 31st of next year. Moving on to Montana. The pre-qualification round for Montana began back on March 12th. The department actually opened up its main application round back on August 13th, so earlier this summer, and closed the application window back on October 31st. So they have received all of their applications, and they are currently working through the negotiation/scoring phase to ensure they've got 100% universal coverage. Next slide, please. Excellent, thank you. Moving on to Nebraska. Nebraska just held a town hall providing really timely and needed updates yesterday morning. And I know that they have now published a finalized version of their volume 2 and some additional materials on their website. So would strongly encourage that you go check that out. But their plan is to start the pre-qualification process for the BEAD program on November 27th. This pre-qualification process is envisioned to run for about 30 days. And then after that 30-day period, the successful pre-qualified providers will be announced. The plan right now is for the Nebraska Broadband Office to hold 2 rounds of project applications, one round that's focused mostly on fiber applications and the second focused on all other technologies. Each round will consist of a 30-day application window followed by a 30-day scoring phase. I will qualify all of this information by saying that I do believe that the Broadband Office probably has provided more specific guidance in terms of the timing of these rounds. So I would say check out the town hall information that they have now published on their website as of this morning. Moving on to Nevada. Nevada closed its BEAD application window on October 10th and is currently working with operators to negotiate project area extension / revision to incorporate all unserved and underserved locations. Moving on to New Mexico. New Mexico submitted its proposed post-challenge process data set to NTIA for approval back on August 29th and is still working on the curing process to ensure that the data meets the BEAD requirements. The Broadband Office has published a state-level notice of funding opportunity for the BEAD program and has indicated that round 1 of BEAD applications will be accepted from January 3rd of next year to February 17th. This is the presumptive plan pending adjustments related to NTIA approval of those BEAD challenge process results. Moving on to New York. New York wrapped up its pre-qualification process back on September 30th. They had said that they were going to announce the pre-qualified applicants on October 30th. The Broadband Office is yet to announce when it will begin soliciting applications for the program. Moving on to North Dakota. North Dakota wrapped up its challenge process a good while ago and then just wrapped up the pre-application process today as of November 19th. And they are still looking towards a early winter start to the subgrantee selection process. I imagine we will be getting more information from them closer to the end of the month about the timing of that subgrantee application window. Moving on to Ohio. Ohio completed its challenge process as of September 11th and is still presumably awaiting next steps from the NTIA on its challenge process results prior to finalization. Moving on to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is currently in the midst of its challenge process and will be running the challenge process until January 15th of this next year. The State Broadband Office will, of course, need to get NTIA approval of these challenge process results before publishing BEAD eligible locations for providers to bid on. Moving on to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is opening its BEAD application window on November 22nd, and we'll close this window on January 21st of next year. So make sure you've got your application materials in order if you are interested in participating in Pennsylvania. Moving on to South Carolina. South Carolina has finished the challenge process as of July 15th, and the pre-qualification process began back on November 12th and will end on December 13th. So if you're interested in participating in the BEAD program in South Carolina, make sure you get that pre-qualification, your pre-qualification materials in. Moving on to Tennessee. Tennessee wrapped up its letter of intent acceptance process earlier this month. The NTIA is still working on the curing of the challenge process results that Tennessee submitted. Like many of these other states, Tennessee, has to wait for NTIA approval before really opening up the application process and publishing a list of BEAD eligible locations for folks to bid on. So I would say focus if you're interested in Tennessee, keep a close eye on their website for timely updates. Next slide, please. Excellent, thank you. Moving on to Texas, as I already stated off the top, huge landmark for Texas and for NTIA with the announcement of the approval of their Volume 2 this morning. Texas Broadband Office had announced that it will start its challenge process on December 3rd. And will run this challenge process for 14 days. Pre-registration for participation in the challenge process is open now, so if you are interested in submitting a challenge, make sure you are pre-registered. Moving on to Utah. Utah, opened its pre-application and registration portal back on October 22nd. And is still accepting pre-application materials until December 23rd of this year. The final application is expected to open in January of 2025. Moving on to Virginia. Virginia has launched its letter of intent window on October 1st and will run this phase until November 30th of this year. The Broadband Office is waiting for NTIA approval of its BEAD eligible locations post-challenge process. Moving on to Washington State. Washington is actively accepting BEAD applications from November 12th to January 31st of this next year. Moving to West Virginia, West Virginia closed its BEAD application window a while ago, but had announced that it will be holding a subsequent extension round for select areas that received no applications or received non-cost-effective applications, with a presumptive open date for sometime in November and a closed date for sometime in December. They have not yet announced the dates of that extension round. Moving on to Wisconsin. Wisconsin closed its letter of intent acceptance window back on October 1st of this year. They are currently planning to run the BEAD process through the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin's website. So I would say keep your eyes peeled for their grant webpage and their PSC docket proceeding where they're publishing additional information on the BEAD program. They're still looking at a November timeline to open up the bidding process, but I think that we're probably much closer to seeing something towards December. Moving on to Wyoming. Wyoming is currently accepting applications for BEAD projects and will close applications on December 5th. Next slide, please. Excellent. So circling back to Louisiana, as I said at the top of the presentation, it really is a big step that Louisiana has gone through the subgrantee selection process and has now published the first draft final proposal that we've seen so far for states participating in the BEAD program. This draft that was published is just being published for public comment, so you do have the opportunity to offer up comments on what you see in Louisiana's final proposal. This does share the preliminary results of the BEAD subgrantee selection process and offers a couple of interesting findings for how Louisiana decided to adjudicate and run the BEAD program. Those of us who live and breathe BEAD are currently working through the BEAD final proposal to see what insights there are to glean. But there are a couple of things that I do really want to make clear, for the folks who are watching today. So first, I think it's really important to note that Louisiana got a huge BEAD allocation. Louisiana really was very quick and was very aggressive about advocating for getting as much money as possible in order to help close the digital divide. And when you consider the numbers of unserved and underserved within the state, Louisiana really took home a lot more money than other states in order to address this divide. The broadband office had been very transparent that it really did have enough money to get everybody fiber in the state, but ultimately decided not to do that. Ultimately, only $750 million of the $1.355 billion that Louisiana got is actually being used for the deployment of broadband infrastructure. $500 million has not been used and is currently earmarked for yet to be specified non-deployment activities related to digital equity, as is allowed for in the BEAD notice of funding opportunity. So I think one of the key things that we can take away from this is that the broadband office was very sensible and pragmatic in saying, look, we don't need to exhaust our BEAD allocation by deploying just fiber infrastructure. We can be smart about how we deploy, how we use our BEAD funding to deploy broadband infrastructure, while also saving a little bit of money that we can now use for the other key aspects of addressing the digital divide, things like affordability and access. So that I think is really going to be a key lesson for a lot of other states who are now going to be thinking about, if I've got more money, more money to deploy fiber infrastructure, maybe I should start thinking about how I can optimize the technology mix we're using to ensure I've got money left over to address all the important digital equity work that my state or our state needs. Of the amount of of the technology mix that was deployed, it's important to note that satellite took home 3.8% of the available broadband funding for the state of Louisiana. Fixed wireless took home 1.2%, a little bit more than $9 million, and then cable managed to get 0.5%. Of the fixed wireless customer, or of the fixed wireless applicants who won project funding, we're really excited to see Tarana customers as part of that mix. And we do know that some Tarana gear definitely won as part of the Louisiana's BEAD application, and we're excited to share more about the details of that once we're allowed to go public with that. And with that, I am going to hand it back to Alex.
Thank you, Gabriel. That was fantastic. So I think that was a very in-depth overview of what's going on each individual state. And what I would say would be my message from this is timing is of the essence. As we're moving through pre-qualification quickly to application, if you are considering, please reach out. We have a very big value-added process here at Winncom where we can help with the pre-applications, we can help with the applications, we can help determine areas of eligibility, existing technologies, and I'll quantify that a little bit later in this presentation. Another thing to note, in West Virginia is a key example. If you happen to miss your window, some of these states will reopen. So all is not lost. Again, if you are thinking of applying and that window has closed, reach out. That way we can keep an eye on it with you. And as soon as these things open, it's a short period of time. So what I wanted to talk about now is kind of our eco center of BABA certified and BABA approved product lines. And this really falls in a couple different buckets. It falls in our active fiber, our passive fiber, and then what I'll call middle mile connectivity. From an active fiber perspective, our strategic vendor we're working with here is Nokia. And Nokia really was one of the first to become BABA certified. And what that means is it's domestically procured. 55% of the components are coming from the US and final assembly is in the United States. So they were the first company to register their US-based facility. Within their product portfolio, they again, like our mission, they try to keep it simple. And to promote BEAD and BABA certified, they put together what they call a network in a box. And this is all the electronics you need from end to end to make a fiber network function. Fiber network providers who have leveraged Nokia, and again, it's a very turnkey type of solution. So starting from the left side of the screen, the broadband edge and aggregation portfolio, that falls under the waiver wire exemption, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means. However, when you get into the fiber access points, the OLTs, the ONTs, those products, again, are certified, built into the United States, and 55% of the components. In addition to this, one of the value-added services that Winncom will offer, and we'll talk about this first for certified products, and then we'll talk about it on the exemption waiver wire, but part of your application process will be talking about your strategy for BABA certification and compliance. So for each one of these vendors, we'll be able to provide you with certification letters. So this is an example of one for Nokia. It'll talk about their certification, it'll come on a custom letterhead, and it'll list the product, the BABA part number, the description, quantity, and manufacturing location. And again, one of the first things we wanted to do as a value-added distributor is to take a deeper look in our portfolio of products to make sure that we had the right solutions that would allow us to work with you to build out these eco centers with eligible product lines. What I want to move to next is the passive side of the house. So what I'm showcasing here is an OSP fiber application drawing. Now, this could be aerial fiber, this could be burial fiber, this could be your drop cables. Like active, these also have to fall under the BABA certification. Again, the glass has to come from the United States. It has to be 55% of the components and final assembly and labeling all have to happen here. So we have a portfolio of suppliers that meet these demands. AFL, Superior Essex, Light Links, Duraline on the conduit side, Primus cable on the drop side. So again, we have a best in breed type of approach, be it if it's aerial, barrel, conduit, we have the right solution for you. And a majority of these partners have multiple stocking locations along with our facility. To kind of give you total breadth, in addition to the OSP cable, we do have all the fiber adjacent accessories. Again, coming back to that idea of us working with you, helping with high level, low level designs, and being able to put together those best in breed solutions that encompass the entire network. That way you work with one point of contact through your sales account manager, and we're able to supply and deliver products on site, kitted when and where you need them. Now, moving into Tarana, before we can kind of go over, and Gabriel will give an in-depth overview of the Tarana product line and how that works from hybrid, we first got to put internet capacity at the towers. So part of the BEAD application is it allows for middle mile. And middle mile, I would say, falls in two buckets. You have the connectivity component of that, and then you have the infrastructure component. So speaking of connectivity first, this is two main technologies, right? And this is going to be how are those towers fed? Are they fiber fed? Is it microwave fed? So it would, eligible technologies could be licensed microwave, and that could be 611, 1823. It could also be millimeter wave E-band, 80 gig. So vendors that fall, and this is an exemption, of radio exemption, and that exemption essentially says that the final assembly must be outside of China for it to be eligible. And it must be a radio product, and then the antennas that correlate to that are also included. But we have suppliers like Ceragon, who has a licensed microwave and millimeter wave product. We have Cambium Networks, who has very much the same licensed microwave and millimeter wave. Ciclu on the E-band 80 gig side, so the ability to offer 10 gigs, 5 gigs, 2.5 to these towers. CI, one of our strategic partners with BEAD, also has two different solutions. You have single core, you have dual core, and then they even have an all-indoor where you can run different fibers. It almost is like a point to multi-point type of architecture. Same aspect on their E-band product. Their 80 HDX allows them to offer 10 gigabits per second. And then Intercom Telcom's GX80 offers a 10 gig product with the ability to have dual band agnostically. So again, we try to offer a multitude of solutions based on your preference. But again, we do offer these solutions and then all the ancillaries that you would need to complete these network builds. On the infrastructure side, part of BEAD, there is a DOC de minimis waiver. And what that says essentially is it's either $1 million or 5% of your total grant application can be used for infrastructure. So as you're looking at these designs, and we do a lot of these with customers, it starts with some general mapping, right? Where we can look at some general hex information of available unserved or underserved. We overlay that on existing network. So what asset locations do you currently have? And then what are some future sites or leasing partners like American Tower can you leverage? But the DOC de minimis allows you to build towers that are US manufactured, and our strategic partner here is Roan, where you can have towers that are, there's no limit in size, but it includes towers, it includes non-pens, it includes standoffs. So as we're building out those entire solutions, the infrastructure side is eligible for reimbursement. And what we do as a value-added distributor, and this is very much like the BABA certification, but for each one of those waivers, part of the application process is you need to have certain information. You need to know vendor name, the model, what category does it fall into, so radio or antenna, What is the description? What is the HS codes? What is the country of origin, the name of the manufacturer? So we supply these letters for each one of our eligible vendors. And that's part of our certification process, right? Again, coming down to keeping things simple. As you fill out these applications, there is so much information that's needed. And our goal here is to provide you with that content and work with you in parallel to make sure that it's a seamless experience. And most importantly, you have the highest probability of success of converting these grants to awards. So that provides just an overview of our Eco Center. I'm going to hand this back to Gabriel. And Gabriel, can you walk us through what Tarana is seeing from a product perspective for fixed wireless and hybrid?
I'd be happy to, Alex, and thank you for that comprehensive overview of the Winncom Eco Center. Clearly, that is just a rich, useful resource for folks who are interested in participating in the BEAD program, whether you're using fiber or wireless. That seems like a great solution for an ISP looking to show up with all the tools in the toolkit. So, Tarana Wireless, as I mentioned, the government affairs team for Tarana has really been engaging with state broadband offices, about the BEAD program, and particularly the role that fixed wireless can and will play as part of the program. Next slide, please, Alex. I think that one thing that a common misconception that we hear from our ISPs who are interested in the BEAD program or not really sure kind of where to go, or they're just trying to think about they're making a significant investment in fixed wireless infrastructure, and they want to know how that what's going to happen to that infrastructure with the BEAD program. So, first, a really common misconception is that the BEAD Notice of Funding Opportunity, essentially has a fiber mandate, that states are being directed to fund exclusively fiber in order to close the digital divide. The BEAD Notice of Funding Opportunity has a fiber preference, but by no means is it a fiber mandate. The NTIA has been very clear and has communicated this, in the Notice of Funding Opportunity and subsequent communication. Evan Feynman, who runs the BEAD program at the NTIA, was actually just at our headquarters last week for our Connecting Community Summits, and he was unequivocal and perfectly clear. The NTIA's sole goal of the BEAD program is 100% universal service, and that means connecting all unserved and underserved American families and businesses. The NTIA is directing states to deploy, quote, reliable broadband technologies that meet and preferably exceed the NTIA's, speed service goals for broadband service. And ultimately, what this means is that the NTIA and state broadband offices are empowering providers to submit BEAD application bids that utilize not just fiber, but a mixture of reliable broadband technologies to help get the job done and achieve our mutual goal of 100% universal service. Next slide, please. So, I mentioned this notion of reliable broadband. The NTIA, has specified that there are certain broadband technologies that they will allow states to accept and fund as part of the BEAD program, and other technologies which they view as unreliable or inconsistent in their ability to deliver broadband service. So, the reliable broadband technologies are things like fiber optic cable, HFC cable, DSL technology, although I will note DSL, there are some state-by-state modifications with DSL, just depending on the state's preference. And then, of course, finally, terrestrial fixed wireless technology, either using entirely licensed spectrum or utilizing a hybrid of licensed and unlicensed spectrum. And these technologies delivering broadband service of at least 100 by 20 megabits per second with a latency of less than or equal to 100 milliseconds is considered to be reliable served broadband for the purposes of the BEAD program. So, in the context of Tarana, what does this mean? For us, our technology meets the reliable broadband service requirements for the BEAD program. Next slide, please. And specifically our G1 CBRS product is considered to be reliable for the BEAD program. There was a little bit of confusion when the FCC updated its broadband data collection codes while the NTIA was publishing its BEAD notice of funding opportunity, and there was a lapse where there was some concern about whether CBRS was still considered reliable or lightly licensed for the purposes of the BEAD program. But the NTIA has clarified in a subsequent BEAD notice of funding opportunity FAQ that CBRS technologies, whether operated in GAA or with a priority access license, are considered to be reliable for the purposes of the BEAD program. So use of CBRS, is acceptable and considered reliable for the purposes of the BEAD program. Next slide, please. And we went one slide too fast. Perfect. Thank you. So, and what's the one thing that we're really excited about, and what we've already seen with the state of Louisiana, is the success of Tarana customers in bidding Tarana's G1 CBRS product to win BEAD dollars. And there are a couple of reasons why we think next generation fixed wireless is particularly suited to be successful as part of the BEAD program. First, obviously, we're operating in CBRS. We're considered licensed for the purposes of for the purposes of the BEAD program. So that's crucial. Another key element is the fact that our G1 product is able to offer incredibly high speeds that far exceed the 100 by 20 megabit per second standard explicitly stated by the NTIA as part of the BEAD program. Our CBRS product is able to offer up to 800 megabits per second of aggregate throughput for one customer, and being able to offer speeds that exceed that 100 by 20 megabit per second speed standard allows an operator to demonstrate to the state broadband office that this is infrastructure that doesn't just kind of squeak past the service requirements. This is broadband service, or this is technology that is able to deliver additional throughput as the customer needs it. So we're not going to have to worry about taking equipment off of a customer's home or off of a tower. This is scalable and future-proof broadband service that will meet household needs for the foreseeable future. Additionally, the ability of our technology to work around line of sight obstructions like trees, buildings, temporary obstructions like like the Amazon truck going through your neighborhood or the school bus going through your neighborhood, that gives a lot of confidence to state broadband offices, as frankly, a lot of state broadband offices are very familiar with the caricature of fixed wireless technology that has continually overpromised and underdelivered in terms of service and speeds. But the ability to work around line of sight obstructions, is just another vote of confidence for applicants to feel like they're bidding with a technology that is future proof and sufficiently robust to offer service well into the future. Next slide, please. And this is where there really are some key lessons that we can take from some of the first mover states, Louisiana, Nevada, Colorado, Montana, that have really that I think providers should really take heed of as they consider participating in their own state's BEAD program. So first, I think that one thing that's really clear as a across the board lesson for most state broadband offices is that the lack of ISP participation in several states' BEAD programs has been very surprising. Several states that have already gone through at least one or multiple rounds of BEAD project applications have stated publicly and privately that they're really surprised by the lack of participation, particularly from larger operators with names like Frontier or Charter. These are folks that I think a lot of state broadband offices had really hoped would participate in the BEAD program, but I think the regulatory aspects of the program, things like the low cost cost option, uniform guidance. These sorts of things have really made it difficult for larger operators to participate. And as a result, due to a lack of participation from a large number of ISPs, states have to get creative to engage in really spirited negotiation with participants to edge out or expand their project areas to account for all unserved and underserved locations. Furthermore, I think you're really finding that states are really anxious about the 365-day timeline impacting their plans to hold multiple rounds of bidding. There are some states that have said that they plan to hold, up to 5 rounds of bidding from providers. But I think that as the realities come to bear of the process of getting NTIA approval, of challenge process results, kind of the other various bottleneck processes within the BEAD program. I think a lot of states are starting to realize that they don't nearly have as much time as they had anticipated having during the planning process of the volume, the drafting process of the Volume 2 documentation. And so far, the NTIA has indicated that they're pretty hard pressed to grant waivers to extend that timeline beyond the original 365 days. As a result, this means that states, again, really are going to have to focus on that first round of BEAD applications to kind of be the wet clay that they have to work with to achieve an outcome of 100% universal service. And then finally, the NTIA has not yet wavered on the expectation that states deliver on this goal of 100% universal service. Earlier this summer, they published the draft alternative technology guidance that really stated very clearly how states can deal with scenarios where they don't receive cost-effective applications or they don't receive any applications at all, and how a state broadband office can think about, incorporating unlicensed fixed wireless or low Earth orbit satellite as part of their BEAD program. Next slide, please. So all of these realities really suggest, how practical it is for a provider to show up or participate in the BEAD program for their state with a hybrid technology project bid. A hybrid technology project bid is a bid that utilizes two reliable broadband technologies. So fiber for a certain number of broadband serviceable locations, and then next generation fixed wireless for another portion of locations. And this is really perfect for states like think Oregon or Kansas, states that have large defined project areas, things like school districts or counties where, frankly, the cost of doing all fiber for a school district or county has a high chance of being, way above the extremely high cost per location threshold, simply because, within a given school district or geographic area, you're going to have a few handful of locations that are incredibly expensive to serve with one specific technology. Having flexibility in terms of technologies you can use to offer service helps the state achieve the goal of 100% universal service while also conserving the finite finances that the state has to work with to achieve that goal. And particularly when you look at those high cost areas, which the NTIA has already identified and has published those census block groups for your review, bidding hybrid technologies in these high cost areas, it just helps better navigate some of the challenges related to providing service in these areas. And state broadband offices have indicated their interest and desire to have these types of applicants participate in the BEAD program. So some advice that I would recommend in terms of if you're going to participate in the BEAD program using a hybrid technology bid, you want to design project bids that utilize technologies that can, provide broadband service that exceeds that 100 by 20 megabit per second BEAD standard and has the additional capacity to add additional homes or broadband serviceable locations in the future with comparable broadband speed or service. So a few closing remarks that I would say, about considering NGFWA as part of your BEAD strategy. Next slide, Alex. There are a few things that I would really consider. So first, if you're a WISP, I would say consider partnering with a local fiber company in your jurisdiction to partner to submit hybrid technology bids. Showing up showing up with multiple partners, I think, it can be a bit challenging in terms of, navigating kind of kind of coordination efforts related to that. But I think that if you are showing up with more solutions or more technologies in the toolkit, that's really going to benefit you when you ultimately get to the negotiating table with the state broadband office to, expand project areas or incorporate more technologies to expand service. For states with multiple rounds of bidding, I would say that if you're an alternative technology provider, you want to feasibly bid all unbid project areas or clusters of BSLs. Again, this just makes sure that when you get to the negotiating process with the state broadband office, you are involved with as many project areas as possible. So you will always be part of the conversation with the state broadband office in terms of expanding project areas to account for more unserved and underserved folks. And then finally, as you consider that alternate technology to include as part of a hybrid technology bid, think about how the technology will help you in your project application. A huge part of non-fiber project applications is the speed of network or other technical capability scoring segment that some states have, others have kind of some variation of it. But the point being is that the non-fiber technology you include as part of your application will dictate the score that you get on this portion of the project scoring criteria. Your ability to max that out will get you very valuable application points that will help put you over the edge to win BEAD dollars. And then finally, my key advice, just get to the negotiating table, participate in the BEAD program, get to the negotiating table, and you're more likely than not to be successful as part of the BEAD program. Sticking around on the sidelines and waiting for your state to potentially open up a kind of last resort final round is not really a strategy. Hoping for an opportunity is not a strategy. You have to participate in order to get to the negotiating table and have those opportunities presented to you. So I would say, just push through, be an active participant in the BEAD process, and make yourself available to your state broadband office. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Alex for closing remarks.
Yeah, I think that was perfectly said. If you're thinking about applying, engage us as soon as you can. And not only can we help you with the products in the Eco Center and the technology, we can help you with the strategy of determining where is the best place to target in your state based on counties, based on QGIS information. We can look at competition in that particular area. We can look at existing funding in that area. We can look at UCLA information to see average upload and download speeds. And then we can help you with pre-qualification to application, putting together these. And again, our goal here is not only making it simple, but giving you the best possible chance of winning these grants and these applications. So I know we're running out of time. Just really quick, we talked about the Eco Center solutions, but we also have grant writing. Service varies based on individual customers. It can be as in-depth as we collect everything, we write the narratives, we submit on your behalf, to we audit the process and we provide a very light touch. It all depends on your budget, it all depends on your background, your experience, but we have a program that works for you. We can offer professional engineering services, boots on the ground, PE stamped drawings, which is part of the requirements. And then we bring that full circle with our BEAD portal. And on this particular site, we have all the latest and greatest on the state information, the latest of what suppliers are eligible, both from certification and exemption, and then what do those Winncom services look like and how we can help. And to echo what Gabriel mentioned, time is of the essence. You have two excellent partners here with Tarana Wireless and Winncom Technologies. Please engage us and let us know how we can help you be successful. That is all I have. I know we're a minute over on the presentation. Do we have any questions?
Nope, everyone seems pretty comfortable with your information.
Okay, we will reach out to you guys following this presentation. You'll get the slides. You'll get a link to our BEAD portal. in addition to that, you'll get a copy of today's webinar. Our contact information is also listed there. So again, timing is of the essence. If you're considering at all of applying, please let us know and we can sit down and have a one-on-one consultation to figure out how we can best assist. Gabriel, as always, it is a pleasure. Dawn, thank you for teeing this up, and for all you on the line, let us know how we can be of assistance.
Thank you, folks.